Tiano, Kalebe, and Ricky, Danielle, and all the other people involved for preparing this amazing conference, and especially for inviting a security talk into a developer conference. We have been seeing a huge interest from developers in bringing security into their development process, and thanks to organizers, I get to have amazing conversations with everyone attending and understand better the needs and the goals, which is fantastic. Thank you a lot for that. For those of you, for those of you that I didn't have the chance to meet yet, I'm David. You can find me on Twitter as David Diaz, or you can find me in GitHub as Diaz David. Actually, there is a funny fact, because the David Diaz on GitHub is actually a Brazilian developer, which I'm not sure if he's here, but if you know him, say hi for me and tell him that I was around. As Douglas mentioned, I came from Portugal. I organized a conference there called LXJS, one of the JSconf family conferences. And as Douglas mentioned very well, like, there is direct flights with no connections from Fortaleza, which I invite you all to come to the conference. It's so easy to get there. What? So, if you knew that before, yeah, you have to come to Lisbon. But the reason why I'm here today is because I'm part of Lyft, the security team at NDET, and part also of the Node security project founded by Adam Baldwin. But before jumping into the Node security part, I really would like to make an overview of like security before the Node security project, or even before Node. In a nutshell, like, people were doing web apps before Node, right? Like, there is no question for that. And things such as like input validation, output validation, segregation of privileges, authentication, authorization, all those things were already concerns before. And if not taken, if not handled properly, they would create liabilities for your applications that could create, like, could compromise the whole, your whole projects or your whole companies. These concerns still exist. We typically procrastinate about like thinking about them. We just like code your apps and don't really worry about them, but a change of habits is requested. And now we know something extraordinary is happening that was never seen before. People are reusing code like beasts. It's very normal to have like Node apps made from 70 to 80% of third-party code. And there is one thing that we have to remember. By injecting so many third-party code into our applications, we have to be responsible for what we require. The third-party code should be like an advantage to us and not inject liabilities without us knowing, without us understanding what's happening underneath those modules. And I guess some of you might be like asking yourselves right now, like, why is David speaking about like taking into account the open source code that we use? Like, open source has been here for ages. Why like worry now? Why what has changed? Whoa, sorry. What has changed? And in a nutshell, or like, the simple answer is basically you, the JavaScript and the Node community. Like, we never seen a community so striving to share, so striving to contribute, to create something greater as a whole. People are using a lot of code because they want to be part of something greater. That's why we can have nice things that there were never seen before, like Node School.io. I don't know, quick show of hands who knows this project or ever used it before. So Nodes, actually less than I expected. You guys really have to check it out. It started by a streams adventure from Substack and Max Ogden back in 2013 NodeConf, and it escalated to something really, really huge, where you can just go to Node School.io today and like learn about Node, learn about JavaScript, learn about Git, learn about LevelDB, all sorts of stuff in really tiny courses that get you like nail down all the concepts that you need to know. And people are creating events all over the world with Node School.io courses, so everyone can learn. For me, like, projects like Node School represent totally the spirit of the Node and the JavaScript community nowadays. And the true fact is, like, if we want to bring security as part of our development process, as like a first thing that we have in our mindset, we really have to work together. We really have to learn with each other, and we have to learn with past mistakes. That's where the Node security project kicks in. Like, the Node security is not a one-time thing. It's not something that like a security analyst goes into your application, breaks everything, fixes everything, and then it's done. It's not a destination, it's a process, it's a journey. We have to be constant measuring what we are advancing and iterating over that, and like making small steps to a better and more secure application. How the Node security project proposes to do that? In a nutshell, basically audit all the modules in NPM help developers build better secure code, expose best practices, expose techniques, patterns that will help them solve similar problems that were solved before something really bad breaks and like the whole projects are compromised. So we started with this hypothesis, right? Like reusing other people's code could actually inject liabilities. And from this hypothesis, we did a little research to see if what we were saying was actually true. And you know the story, right? So you need some functionality into your project. You go into NPM, you search for it, you find a module, it does a thing, it doesn't think well, you you install it, and then you are like, you start like concerning about the rest of your application, and you don't concern about really that module or what it does underneath. Like this NPM install all the things pattern that we see nowadays in the Node community. And let me give you some examples like that we found that are very interesting. Have you ever seen someone doing this, NPM install fs? No? Someone wish no? Okay. And everyone, did you see someone do this before? NPM install Socket.io? Is Team Asin? Who uses Socket.io in their projects nowadays? Okay, good show of hands. Actually, it's not Socket.io, it's socket.io. There is a dot in there. This is not the right module that I'm talking about, that you probably might be thinking. And what is happening is like people are just installing modules blindly without even checking if the module is the right one or not. And after searching like and reviewing the NPM logs, we realized, for example, modules like FS, which might sound silly because it's a core module, no one really needs to install it, but people were trying to. They might not understand it's a core module. So FS had more than 50,000 downloads over, and that's a lot. For example, Adam Baldwin, as I mentioned, the founder of the Node Security Project, just published CoffeeScript without the dash, just to see what happened. It was like a blank module, just add the README, and over a week he got 200 downloads. It is a lot. And he basically just got caught, although he didn't have any bad intention like to exploit anyone, because like the module did nothing. If he copied the code base of the module and inject some malicious code inside CoffeeScript, probably more people would be using that into production nowadays, and no one really would notice. Right now, like these names are available to be published. People will just get 404, but like the true fact is, like NPM is growing a lot, and like it's really hard to keep up to it. And someone might exploit that window, that availability of the namespace that there is to exploit other people. Or like it doesn't have to be really an hacker to be looking for these edge cases and like copying modules and installing and cloning them with malicious code. It can be just someone that publishes a module and is really excited to share it with friends, with other developers, and everyone starts using it. But in fact, the module has some security liability, and no one really realizes what's happening underneath. So we don't want that to happen. We really want to help developers to overcome this challenge and trust the modules that they are using for their projects and not hang themselves up by installing blindly the modules that are there in NPM. Our initial process, so like actually Node Security Project just made 1 year last week. It's 1 year old project. We started by identifying code patterns, that would tell us if like after running a static analysis through the code of the module, if the module was a candidate to have that security issue or not. Vulnerability, and if we find modules that would be candidates to that security vulnerability, we would try to fix it, contact the developer in a responsible manner. Like we are not going to go on Twitter saying, oh, that module has a vulnerability. No, we try to, in a responsible manner, disclose the vulnerability and make sure the fix is made before publishing an advisory. And then once the module is fixed, we publish an advisory and the community gets served. What happened was, with this initial process, although we fixed a few things, we learned a few things, we got some awareness, and people were really helping out, it happens like humans don't scale as much as NPM is scaling right now. So we were not able to cope with all the modules being published, and it was really hard. And the true fact is that like we were not really helping developers understand better how to build better secure code, because if we are giving them just the fixes for the modules, they will just get the fix, like they will just get the free candy and they didn't understand how to make those things. So we started like thinking for ourselves and like trying to create a new way to help developers really understand. And we envisioned a new process that I'm here to talk about today. The first experiment was definitely not sustainable, but we learned with it. We measured our flaws, we measured our successes, and we are iterating it over, which basically, in a nutshell, is like the whole security process that has to happen inside development teams. So the new process is basically like these 7 pretty icons. It starts over by like we have a node security core team that's coming up with vulnerabilities and new findings, or people just can report to us directly. And with these new findings of vulnerabilities, we can like run searches through the entire module code base in NPM and see which models are the candidate ones, as the previous process, to have that specific vulnerability. For the ones that we find, or the ones that are candidates, we basically create a new ticket. And these tickets can be like popped up by any developer in the world, like any developer that wants to contribute. They can go there to the security project and just like pick the ticket, see that there is a module that is candidate to have a vulnerability, and try to fix it and try to learn how to fix that vulnerability. The thing is, like, since we have a clue of the vulnerability that we are talking about, we can actually provide you guys a lesson. Like, we can actually attach a lesson to this ticket and explain how we fixed the similar modules or similar vulnerabilities in the past, or like, I don't know, from papers to blog posts. Like, we can give resources for developers that want to learn security and that want to understand how to fix them. Once we have several people like pointing that, okay, that module has a vulnerability, here is some proposed fix or not, we bring it to the core node security team and we reassure that the module is actually like liable to some security issue, and we then contact the developers. Which might seem that is a really, really like non-hard part of the whole process, but actually is the toughest one, because like developers or module authors have different ways that they want to be communicated with, and they don't specify that in any document. It's really hard for us to make sure that we reach the developers in a way that they will listen us to, and they don't just get scared by getting some email from someone saying, you have a security vulnerability in your code. Probably they will just archive it, and then we don't know if the module owner really saw the problem or not. What we have been advocating in other conferences, and I ask you guys to do the same, is adding a security.md to your GitHub repos. Tell us, how do you want vulnerability issues to be disclosed to your projects? It can be simply an email address. It can be even a phone number if you prefer. But please tell us how we should contact you when there is a vulnerability issue, so like the fix gets done and the advisory gets published. So once we manage to contact the developer and make sure that the fix is done, we fix it together, we learn from that together, and we published an advisory. And the advisory is simply like explaining the vulnerability that was found in the module, and the community gets served. Let me just like be clear about one thing first. Like, we never publish an advisory before having a fix. We want to be a resource for developers. We don't want to screw anyone over. That's not our intent. That's not our goal. And with this new process, like even if it fails to sustain, if it doesn't scale as well as we are thinking about it, it's definitely going to be a lesson. Definitely, we are going to learn something with it, and we will be able to measure and iterate for the next process and like continue growing and making better software and more secure code in our beloved NPM. This process can be seen as a bit of vaporware because it's not working right now. We are building the tools to make this happen, but I would definitely not want to leave you guys today like empty-handed, because there is some resources that you can use today for your node apps and like to help you develop better secure code. The first one and the more simple one is like we are gathering all the papers, blog posts, talks from other security analysts that talk about node apps, and you can find them all on the node security.io resources. Everything is there. You can like learn a lot from other modules that were fixed and or other other developers that have the security part of things and that explain how they brought security into their development process. Other thing that we are producing and keeping to create is the advisories. So every module in NPM that we fixed in the past, we worked together with the developer to fix it. We publish an advisory, and the information is all there public. You can just go there, like see which models have vulnerabilities, see if you are using it, and learn how they were fixed, and if possible in the future, don't commit the same mistakes. I know that like, if you are thinking, like if there is a database of all the vulnerabilities found so far, it would be really great to have some way to validate our projects against that database. I don't have to like to go one by one every time that we want to validate it, and that is available. You basically just like shrink wrap your node project and post it into our API, basically dash validate dash shrink wrap, or you can like just validate by a module name and a version. There is an example here that you can use it with curl, and we will tell you if there is a vulnerability on that module that we have found. Of course, we are not giving you like 100% for sure that like if the module is not there, that is secure. We are just telling you guys, okay, this module, there is no incidents so far. But it doesn't guarantee that your code is 100% secure, but at least guarantees you that you are not using something that is already exploitable by hackers or by any other entity. We also been working in the past month in a new CLI that we help developers report new modules with liabilities or just like test the same shrink wrap thing. As you can see, I'm not sure if you can see well, but it not only gives you like if your dependencies of your project have vulnerabilities, but it also tells if your dependencies from dependencies have vulnerabilities as well. So if there is something along the path, like we are going to traverse it and like find if there is a vulnerability. But the learning doesn't really stop here. Like there is a ton of resources over the web to learn about more about security. Also, if you want to learn more, you can always ping us. One of our favorites is NodeGoat. NodeGoat is a project started by OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project, which is basically a Node app with all the vulnerabilities that you can get. Like there is nothing more insecure than that thing, and it tells you how to fix it. It basically like you can clone it, you can break it, you can fix it and learn with it. It's of course like probably it's almost overwhelming like to do that in just like one shot, but I totally recommend you like to like when you go home, like, when you come home from JSconf Brazil, like clone the repo, try to fix one of the issues there, and like just talk with your friends, talk with your peers, talk with your colleagues in your company, and say what you found out about like NodeGoat or what you learned from it. And if everyone like learns just a little bit of this project and how to fix like at least one issue, I'm sure that everyone is going to start talking about these problems and learn together as a whole, as I said in the beginning. I'm basically wrapping up. I see that I really didn't use all my time. One thing I really want to ask you, like, if you please find, and I had some conversations about this today, like, if you please find a vulnerability, please tell us. Like, if you don't know what to do, like, just inform us. We have an email that you can report, or you can use like any of our personal emails. The email is report@nodesecurity.io. We will be happy to follow up in that process. Like, we will be happy to contact the developer. We will be happy to make sure that the security issue gets fixed, and we will be happy to serve the community. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Thank you.